Hello and welcome to America in Focus, powered by the Center Square. I'm Dan McCaleb, Executive Editor of the Center Square Newswire service. Joining me again today, as he does each and every week, is the Center Square's Washington, D.C. Bureau Chief, Casey Harper. How are you, Casey?
Doing good, Dan. How are you?
I am doing well, fresh off of a few days off, but couldn't skip recording America in Focus with you, Casey. Had to be back by this morning.
I'm glad to hear that. Are you recording this from the deck of a cruise ship?
I am recording this from the comfort of my home office, Casey, but Thank you for asking. We are recording this on Friday, September 22nd. Casey, the ongoing border crisis has been more than challenging, not just for border states, but for states across the country, essentially since President Biden first took office and drastically altered U.S. immigration policy. The Center Square has been covering this crisis since day one, but it's so multifaceted, it's hard to keep track of everything going on. This week, a group of Republican governors asked President Biden for a full accounting of what the border crisis has meant for the American people. Bring us up to speed on this.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the border has really fallen into crisis mode, and it's become a political crisis for the Biden administration because there's so many videos, for instance, going viral, just showing seemingly thousands of people walking across the border unfettered. We have all the reports from the border from some good reporting at thecentersquare.com showing that these agents are overwhelmed. I've talked to people and written about how the cartels will actually purposefully overwhelm a section of the border with migrants. And then once all the border agents are busy, they will shoot through a load of fentanyl, right? And just get a bunch of fentanyl up across the border. So this has been going on for a while now. It's gotten much, much worse since Biden took office. There are some policy reasons for that. But as you said, these governors are raising the alarm, and it's gone from just a couple of border states to this is a nationwide coalition, a couple dozen states. And, I thought this excerpt from the letter is really interesting to see. Analysts estimate the annual net cost of illegal immigration for the U.S. at the federal, state, and local levels at least $150.7 billion. So we're talking about this taxpayer angle here. States are forced to provide financial, educational, and medical support to migrants entering our country illegally, support that is skyrocketing in costs due to record inflation and unprecedented influx of migrants into our states. And so, what they're saying is this is a huge financial burden on these states, and especially on these counties and cities like El Paso, some of these border counties where they're getting like legitimately tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people over the last few years. And many of these people are either just coming right across the border and camping out, or they're needing medical assistance. They're, dehydrated, different things. They could be pregnant. There's just so many issues when you have that many people walking through a small Texas or Arizona county that rise up and that arise. And so when you have, and as we've talked about, there's been actually millions of illegal immigrants. Illegal immigration has increased by, 850% in some cases, according to what Republicans say, which is also at the northern border, I'll point out. And you've pointed this out as well. It's not just the southern border anymore. The northern border has gotten much worse. And the last thing I'll point to is just the national security implications of this. They reference this in the letter, but I've written about this recently as well, which is that there are many people on the terror watch list, Dan, who are coming across the country. We know they're on the terror watch list, and we know they're coming in, and we're just not doing much about it.
I'm going to come back to that final point you made there, Casey, in just a minute. That's one of the many facets of the border crisis that complicates the story. But I want to go back to this letter that the Republican governors sent to President Biden. They estimated that the annual cost of increased illegal immigration, as you said, $150.7 billion. I've got to think that that's that's a staggering amount of money when you're talking about a recurring cost year in and year out. But I have to think that that's a very conservative number, because at the centersquare.com, we've been reporting about the national aspect of this crisis, but also the impact on states and local governments. And man, just as an observer, a follower of the news, someone who edits our reporting on this story, that just seems low. I would guess it is significantly higher than that when you talk about housing, medical costs education in schools. It's hard to get, for example, it's hard to nail down how much it costs schools to bring, for example, most of these folks are not English language speakers. So the cost to schools to bring them in to the classroom, help teach them English, help acclimate them to the American educational system. Anyway, let's move to this concern about potential terrorists. As we reported at thecentersquare.com, hundreds of individuals on the international terror watch list have been apprehended at the border. But as you and I know, there are thousands of individuals who cross the border every single month that go undetected, known as gotaways. That gotaways is the term that the Border Patrol uses to account for those who are detected crossing the border, but we don't have any personnel to apprehend them, or we don't have enough staff to apprehend them. We don't know who those people are. What percentage of those folks are on the terror watch list that are getting into the country undetected? And there was an alert that was put out by Arizona port authorities about the potential for these folks getting into the country, and it could lead to another September 11th type tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely grown to the point where we're not just talking about a few Latin American countries sending people over. I mean, there's so many millions. There's actually a lot of Chinese people are coming across the border, right? Which raises kind of interesting national security questions and spying questions, since they're an adversarial nation that we are increasingly in tension with and could potentially be in some kind of war over, Taiwan, God forbid, soon enough. But so there's questions like that. There's people from the Middle East who are coming across the border too. So it's not just, what maybe people think of as a few Latin American countries or something sending people over. There's so many millions that it is really from countries all around the world. And so there is that interesting question. I want to go back to what you were saying about the cost. I mean, we legitimately, we legitimately don't know how many people, Dan, are coming into the country. We have these estimates. We know about how many people we caught, and we know about how many people that were spotted but got away, as you said, were gotaways. But we don't know about the people who come in and just are never detected. And so, I mean, it's how do we quantify the cost of this? When we don't actually know even how many illegal immigrants that are coming in, every month. And the number is astronomical. It's growing. The more overloaded the border is, the more people are probably getting through unseen. And I wish I had this stat handy, but I know that we've referenced it before, that the number of people that have come in, just this year, for instance, is more than the population of several U.S. states. Right. So this is such a large number that the idea that we could quantify it and say, oh, it's 150 billion. I think you're right. It is low. We really don't know the scope of this problem, and it's pretty hard to measure the true cost when you start talking about education, the medical system, even policing. There's so many different avenues to it.
TheCenterSquare.com from day one has covered this ongoing border crisis story better than anyone in the national media, and listeners can keep up with it, all the facets of it, at TheCenterSquare.com. But we are out of time. For Casey Harper, I'm Dan McCaleb. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening.